$50,000, $40,000, these are price targets that we are going to be discussing in today's YouTube video, because I think Bitcoin's got a very compelling case to actually travel significantly higher. And I was already talking about stuff like this when Bitcoin was down towards $15,000, $16,000, $17,000, talking about a $30,000, potentially even up to $40,000 Bitcoin. And I want to break that down for you with a lot more detail in today's video. And the first thing I'm going to talk to you about before I even get into that analysis is that there are shortcomings with this analysis that I'm going to cover with you today. There are serious things that I'm overlooking, and my job as an analyst, trader, and YouTuber that you are trusting to come to for information is to poke holes in my own theories, and you must do the same thing as well if you want to make money in these markets. If you don't, you won't make money. I promise you that. You can write that down, put that on the record. I know that you will not make money if you don't poke holes in your own ideas. It just won't work out for you as a trader. But let's get into this. There's a lot that I want to go through. I've got like 6-7 individual points written down, and the first thing, I'm actually going to start off with the single most important thing that I want to talk to you about in today's YouTube video is the inflation rate in the United States year over year. Now this is absolutely huge. We're on the monthly time frame right now with this line chart, and what I've actually gone ahead and done is dropped vertical lines every time the inflation rate absolutely peaked. And then I've also put one horizontal line at the baseline. Now this is the baseline target that the Fed is aiming for inflation rates. And what we're looking at with these spikes is every time you've seen significant spikes, apart from this right here, which I could actually drop down on the chart as well. And what's really important about this, guys, this is actually the backbone of the entire video. I'm just spoiling it for you right at the beginning. I know this is horrible for the algorithm, but I need to give this to you guys at the beginning. And if you appreciate that, do me a favor and smash up the likes as we're coming into this video. We have seen just huge spikes previously, but every single instance that we've seen a big spike on this chart, maybe with the exception of what happened kind of back here, what is this like, this is 1918, 1917, this is World War One, fucking hell. Well, every time when we've seen stuff like this, we did not see the price, the inflation drop down and then rocket up again. And this is the single most important thing that I'm going to cover with you in the video today. Let me break this down for you before I get into the other 6-7 points that I've got written down. We've literally got a situation here where every time the inflation rate shot up massively, once it started to come down, it did not go back up until it significantly dropped down. On this occasion right here, for example, it went all the way up to 12%, came right back down, minus 60% to 5. Huge drop right now. From what we're from what we've seen at the moment, we're down by about 30%. Even on this occasion here, we dropped down by 60. Now, on other occasions, we dropped down by way more. This was minus 100%. We actually went negative over here, which is pretty impressive. On this occasion right here, we dropped down by way more, minus 116%. On this occasion here, minus 100%. This was actually the smallest pullback that the inflation rate ever had. This was, 77, going into the 80s as well, where we saw such high inflation rates. And what this means is that when the Fed manages in history, when the Fed has managed to get control of inflation, at least temporarily, it actually ended up lasting quite a long time. And this is so important, because it potentially means that we're not going to be seeing particularly high inflation rates for a while again. That is, if we end up doing the same things that we've done previously. Now, the only exception to this, where we could see a bit of a pullback with inflation rates and then continue to move up, is when we are in a situation of hyperinflation. So that's what Germany had following World War II, for example. I mean, we're talking deep shit, where inflation kind of gets a little bit better and then gets significantly worse again. We didn't see that when things were really bad. World War One right here, it went up, it did pull back. Very different circumstances to where we are right now. In the 40s, in the last century here, guys, I mean, we saw temporary pauses on inflation rates getting worse, but it wasn't a real pullback. I mean, we had a pullback here. We tried to get those inflation rates up again. It didn't work, and inflation rates just kept on dropping, right? So this is a really strong sign. And actually, this is such a controversial thing for me to say, but for anyone to even discuss, is that it actually kind of seems like the Fed and what they're doing works. Like, fuck me, right? I know that's a bit of a crazy thing to say. Like, God forbid some government entity does their job correctly. It kind of looks like that's what we've got right here, guys. I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers with you. I don't want to get into a political debate here, but I mean, the numbers are here. It's pretty clear that what they've been doing has worked, and it does look like this could be happening again right now. And the thing is, the way this relates back to the markets is that if we are going to be seeing continued drops in the inflation rates, that could mean continued drops in interest rates as well, because we raise interest rates to tackle inflation, but when inflation is actually getting better, well, you know, we could be seeing interest rates dropping, and that leads to more speculation in the markets. We've just gotten this big breakout right here on the S&P 500 and breaking out of this massive descending resistance line right here. Really nice back test coming in at the moment as well, potentially some nice upside for the S&P 500 and downside for the dollar as well. These are all topics that we've been covering on this YouTube channel, so make sure you are subscribed to make sure that you don't miss out on that kind of content. And if you want to take advantage of this volatility with up to $30,000 in rewards, basically for doing nothing, registering an account on OKX gets you up to 10k, depositing $50 gets you up to 10k again in value with the mystery boxes, and you can boost that up to 30k. Very cool opportunities to take advantage of the market. Definitely go ahead and pause the video here, take advantage of that, and then come right back if you're interested in taking advantage of these time limited offers. It's the 27th of February at the time you're recording this video. You've literally got a day left until this particular offer ends, so that is well worth keeping in mind right there, you know, just before time does run out. Interest rates potentially you know, dropping could mean more speculation in these markets, and I think that's really important to keep in mind, because this does potentially mean big moves for Bitcoin. You know, I think that this is the kind of setup that people just aren't really open to discussing right now, because, you know, we've been in a situation where inflation has been such a big, scary, negative thing for so long that it's almost hard to believe, even for me, that things could be getting better now. But that kind of looks like what we could be seeing at the moment. And, you know, if you look at the chart moving up to levels like 30k, right, it looks quite obvious that even if we're continuing to stay in this downtrend, that $30,000 could be a very obvious target for the market to go up to before we continue to drop down if we do resume the downtrend. But even overshooting that, you know, would make a lot of sense. And I want to show you some of the other reasons that this still looks possible, and I'm actually just going to be painting an overall image for you. Now, one of the key things that we can do as traders in these markets is look at is visualize what the market might look like if certain possibilities take place, right? If certain possibilities actually happen. And one of those, right, is if we do end up seeing a big rally for Bitcoin, we're probably going to see a few different things happening in the altcoin market. And the first thing that I want to draw your attention to is Ethereum against the dollar. Now, usually when Bitcoin is going to see really big rallies to the upside, Ethereum does get smacked down a little bit. You know, and I don't necessarily think that Ethereum has a bearish chart right now. I actually think that, you know, Ethereum has a really strong chart right now, you know, so I'm not particularly worried about this, but I do want to put this on your radar. We are still under extremely strong resistance, so the default is always going to be bearish under resistance levels, especially when we are approaching them. I think we've got the best chance we've ever had at breaking it, and trust me, this would be an amazing trading setup if this is something that you're able to take advantage of. At least in my opinion, I mean, this is something that I would consider to be amazing. Certainly not for you, it doesn't matter to me what you do, but for me it matters very much what I do, because a range like this could be traded so well. 40% move, you basically don't even need leverage on something like this to make huge amounts of money. But you know me, I still would be leveraging up a little bit, because even 2-3x leverage would mean that I basically double my money on a move like this. And you already know I'm going to be looking at OKX and Bybit to rip trades like this. Both of these exchanges offering you up to 30k in rewards. You've got 60k stacked if you check out those description links right now before continuing on in the video. But this gets even more interesting with Ethereum if we look at the Bitcoin chart. This is the main thing that I want to draw your attention to, is this monthly support line right here. This is actually a pretty big deal in my opinion. Ethereum has been using this support line going back to basically 2016, which is now 4 + 3, 7 years ago. My god, that is a very long time that we've been using this support line for. And look at the support tests we've had. I mean, they're so nicely spaced out. 2016 February over to 2016 December, over to September 2019, over to January 2021, and we haven't seen a test of this ever since. Now, I'm not saying that we have to test it, but my god, that would make a lot of sense. And it certainly looks like, you know, we're doing either one of two things. We've moved up here and we're forming a really obnoxiously long bull flag right now before breaking up, which, you know what, I think would make a lot of sense, and that has been my long-standing idea. But it also kind of looks like a bit of a flash crash down before maybe moving going up would make some sense here, and it wouldn't be the first time we've seen something like this. This dip right here is exactly what I just described, and we saw that a little bit earlier. Now, it didn't last long, right? This is the weekly time frame, and okay, to be fair, this was, you know, a month and a half. That's still a fairly long amount of time, but in the grand scheme of things, we've basically been trading in this range now for 2 years nearly, you know, a year and I don't know, 10 months or whatever. I mean, a very, very long time indeed. Maybe a year and 8-9 months, very, very long time. So, you know, to briefly just kind of, you know, get a bit of a drop down, something that looks a little bit like this again, I think would make a lot of sense, and that does put us down at this support line. And the reason that this is quite important is that when we see major rallies for the market, that generally means that Bitcoin actually leaves coins like Ethereum in the dust. Bitcoin massively rallies up first, and then we see coins like Ethereum getting a bit of a shine. And I think that's important to keep in mind, because if we do see that big move for Bitcoin up to levels like $40,000-$50,000, well, we probably are going to see some sort of, you know, drop for Ethereum if what I said does end up happening, where Bitcoin leaves it behind. And this is even more interesting when we start looking at coins like Chainlink. Now, this is not something that I look at often, but it's something that I want to bring to your attention just to prove a point, which is that Chainlink right here against the dollar looks to be in a really good position. And the reason that I'm bringing this up, right, is, well, first of all, let's outline why I think Chainlink could be in a good position. First of all, it's had the big bubble pop, right? But this is one of those big coins that, like, despite how I always call coins like this shitcoin, it doesn't really matter. This is a coin that's got a lot of backing, right? A lot of big players. And it's also coins like Litecoin. And this is a coin that I like a lot more. And what we've got that's similar between these two coins is these are basically, you know, I would go as far as saying sleeping giants. I mean, these are coins that, you know, sometimes they wake up, and they wake up big. I mean, you know, 500% here, you know, 1,600% here. From our low to where we are right now, we're already up by more than double. And Litecoin looks to be in a really impressive bull flag right here, where it was trending up very nicely, now pausing a little bit before potentially taking its next leg higher. Coins like this potentially rallying up is also a very interesting prospect, because if we take this back to Link and look at what's going on with Link's chart as well, look at this, right? We had our big bubble pop, trended down, and we are just flat now. Like, to me, this looks like a fair amount of strength, right? We're basically consolidating above highs, you know, that we set right here as well, which is a really good sign. And we're now just moving more or less sideways, with support down at $5.60, resistance up at $8.70, $8.80. Very nice, clean range here, which could signify a bottom. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bottom. This can just as easily continue the trend down, and that would be so, you know, I mean, unsurprising if it did actually happen, right? But when we do form really nice patterns like this, it does, in my experience, increase the likelihood that we could be looking at a temporary bottom for the market, at least, where we kind of rally on a little bit high. Maybe we just rally up to capture resistance at levels like $13, $14, $15, right? Where our next key areas of resistance would be looking at this chart right here. That would also make a lot of sense, right? And I think that's something that's worth keeping in mind. And the reason that that looks quite interesting is that if we see a rally here where, you know, I mean, Ethereum's been teasing us for quite a while, right? I mean, Ethereum hasn't been, you know, performing as well as I think it could have, to be honest with you guys. You know, if we look at Ethereum from its low up to where it is right now, it's up by 85%. If we look at the same thing from Bitcoin, for Bitcoin from its low up to where it is right now, it's up by 50%. Ethereum hasn't been performing significantly better than Bitcoin, in my opinion. We can actually see this with the Ethereum Bitcoin chart as well. You know, I mean, again, we haven't really gained anything against Bitcoin right here. You know, if we look at Litecoin against Bitcoin, though, in comparison, you can see quite clearly, guys, Litecoin is gaining strength against Bitcoin. You know, has been for a minute, guys, to be honest with you. You know, and it looks like it could be, you know, kind of shaping up for another. I mean, it looks a bit like a symmetrical triangle right here, right, which could indicate that we're just gonna, you know, kind of bull flag and then break out again. This is where things get really interesting, because a rally which kind of, you know, it almost starts because inflation is getting better, you know, to be honest with you guys, and almost starts because, you know, the dollar, I mean, it has been trending down for so long, is now in a correction, and the markets aren't really responding that badly to it, you know. Like, so if this correction does come to an end, we capture a little bit of resistance and continue continue to drop down, it's a really good setup, guys. It's a really good setup for coins like Bitcoin, I'm sorry, for indices like the S&P 500, and then after that coins like Bitcoin to rise up, because, you know, if we've got a weaker dollar, people want to put their money back into speculative environments where they can make some more dollars, for example. Obviously, when the dollar is very, very strong, we don't care about that. We just want to hold our dollars. You know, we could be looking at, you know, the same thing happening for gold, where we've seen really nice big rallies coming for gold, which we know is extremely long overdue, to be honest. I mean, we haven't really done anything particularly special compared to what happened in 2011, which was a whole 12 years ago now, you know. So a big rally to the upside, I think, would make so much sense. And look at this, by the way. I mean, it just looks like such a perfect, I mean, you know, we've basically, I mean, yes, I know we've been messing about a little bit, but I mean, this is such a perfect, you know, I mean, look, this is a cup, a really nice handle, potentially ready to blow up. I mean, I don't even need to say more than this, to be honest, for the rest of the video. It just looks so compelling to me that, you know, big picture, I'm not talking about right now, I'm not talking about what might happen in the next days, weeks, maybe not even in the next couple of months, but big picture, we could be looking at a really nice setup for the markets to rise up. And again, not necessarily meaning that we're full bull, you know, I'm not saying that we've started a bull market. I don't really even think that that's the case at the moment, you know, but something that looks a little bit like, you know, rising up towards these levels that we just can't really imagine right now, because I think this is a really hard idea to digest at the moment, you know, and then maybe we come back down, you know, 20k, whatever, find some support, and that's just how 2023 plays out. It actually looks like a chart that's pretty realistic, right? In fact, let me just take this one level further for you guys and develop this a little bit more. You know, it would almost look something a little bit like this chart right here, you know, if we end up painting something like this, right? Take a look at this. I mean, doesn't that look like a really, you know, quite plausible setup for Bitcoin to play out? You know, like over the next, you know, it kind of looks like something like that could be brewing in the market to me. You know, something else that you've probably already seen, depending on when I've uploaded that video, is you know, when Bitcoin was rallying up on this occasion right here, we had an interesting, you know, I mean, this was an interesting bottom, right? Bitcoin was at 6k for a long time, briefly dropped down into a really bad, annoying range, but then we got a nice big breakout followed by a, you know, kind of sideways range that was a little bit awkward, and then the market blew up again, and I mean massively blew up again. Now, if we're looking at the chart at the moment, we've kind of got a similar setup, right, where we kind of had that floor. This would have been 6k, we fell into a really bad range, had a really big explosion in price, and now we're just in a bit of an awkward range. It actually looks really similar, potentially getting ready for that blow up again. I mean, you know, it's compelling. You know, I'm not saying that this is something that guarantees that the market is going to go up, and I'm certainly not even, you know, looking to position myself in that way in particular, but at the same time, this is important stuff to keep in mind. Now, I do want to balance this out a little bit. Like I said, this is ignoring a lot of key things that are actually really bad. You know, one of the big things that I think are worth paying attention to is we've seen so many layoffs, you know, with major companies around the world. I mean, people are just generally not doing particularly well economically. I mean, just money-wise, really, you know, in general, people just aren't well off at the moment compared to, you know, for example, the COVID stimmy days and even before that. And I think that's important to keep in mind, because it's just kind of, for me, it's a little bit hard to imagine a world where, you know, our speculative investments are really rising up with a lot of strength while people are generally quite poor. Now, that doesn't mean it can't happen, but, you know, and the reason for that is, you know, our markets are going to front run reality anyway, right? I mean, everyone's trying to make the move early, so we end up front running things quite often with these markets, and that's why, you know, for example, we saw big rallies in 2020 before, you know, people were necessarily spending their inflation money, you know, their stimulus money and so on. I think that's important to keep in mind, but at the same time, it's just not the environment, you know. I mean, it's still a really bad place overall, and even though inflation is in a pretty decent place, right? I mean, again, you know, it hasn't happened before where we've seen it drop by this much and then just continue to rise up again, right? Unless you think the US is going to see some sort of, you know, hyperinflation episode now, I don't necessarily, you know, I mean, you know, you can be as doomsday as you want, but I don't think that's, you know, necessarily going to happen. You know, unless you're looking at something like that, it's a pretty damn compelling image, you know, to me, that we could be onto something pretty strong, you know, pretty promising right here. And I do definitely like the look of that. That is something that's caught my attention. And another thing that I want to show you kind of in line with this inflation stuff is if we look at US oil right here, as one particular example, and we zoom in onto the weekly time frame right here. Ever since we set our highs in May and what was this? This is not correct. In March and June of 2022, the oil has been in a bit of a downtrend, and ever since then, it's just kind of started to consolidate sideways, which kind of looks to me like it could be ready for another drop down. When we see commodities like oil getting cheaper, that's again going to make issues like inflation a little bit better. So, this is also something that's worth keeping in mind. Now, obviously, this is with big caveats, right? I mean, if we're about to see World War III erupt and stuff like that, then obviously, I mean, we're not really even going to care about the prices of, fucking internet coins like Bitcoin. But, if we do see something really bad happen in the world, then that could mean, supply of oil and so on is going to get harder to access, which would, potentially increase demand, and we see higher prices, inflation gets worse. Everything would be bad if we had war. I mean, we don't want that. The only people that win are, the defense companies or whatever, right? I mean, it's really not something for the average person to celebrate at all, obviously. And so I think that could turn into a little bit of a problem. But with what the chart is showing us right now, we're not in a particularly bad place. And I think that this is, really what everything here, kind of points to is, we've got, like, there are really good signs that this certainly shouldn't happen, but there is also a really good setup right here. I mean, we've come off a really nice bottom. We've rallied off really, really strongly. We've seen a good amount of volume follow through as well. We're getting rejected where we're expecting to. We're consolidating. We're having pullbacks. We're doing everything that we need to show us that this could actually be a very compelling bull case for Bitcoin. And I don't know, I find it very interesting. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I find it very interesting that Ethereum's just got, one of those really classic setups right now that could mean it kind of gets left behind, at least temporarily, while Bitcoin rallies. We see a little bit of the rest of the market rally instead of Ethereum, and then Ethereum has its blow up. Like I said, with coins like Litecoin just looking primed to blow up right now. I don't know if this is worth ignoring, particularly at the moment. I mean, when coins like this wake up, I mean, they stay woken up for quite a while. You look at the previous bear markets, Litecoin woke up right here and it stayed bullish for 200 days. Now on this occasion, up to where we are right now, we're already past 200 days, but it hasn't been anywhere near as extreme as that. It's actually, I would say, it doesn't even move particularly extremely anyway, but this thing did start to really catch some wings around over here. It's only been about 120 days. On this occasion here, we saw Litecoin staying bullish for about 400 to 600 days, depending on where you draw this. I mean, we could be fairly early on in a rally for Litecoin, and I think it's just one of those indicators that's worth looking at as far as what might happen with our markets in general. With Bitcoin definitely having some nice clear skies. If Bitcoin's able to clear its next bit of resistance right here, I mean, again, there's not much stopping Bitcoin from rising up to spectacularly high levels, and I think that people are really itching to see something like that. I feel like if Bitcoin did manage to get above 25K, I don't really think many people would be stepping in front of that steaming train. I think that could, definitely result in bigger rallies. I'm also saying, I mean, I feel like I'm seeing a little bit too much bearish sentiment in general right now. It is starting to creep in. It feels like a lot of YouTubers are, really kind of leaning towards the bearish side, not necessarily meaning that that's, a good or a bad thing. It doesn't, it's not really something that you can read into too much because it's not very scientific. But at the same time, that's what I want to see, right? If I'm looking at the market rallying up, and if that's what I'm kind of expecting in the kind of mid to long term, at least for now, then I don't, again, I mean, I've always said this, I don't want to feel like I'm in agreement with everybody. When I feel like I'm in agreement with everybody, it probably tells me that I'm wrong. And that's the same line of thinking that told me I need to be bullish on Bitcoin down here. It's the same line of thinking that told me I need to sell my Bitcoin when we were up here at about $57,000. And this is, and you guys know this is kind of famous, so to speak, story of mine is, I did sell a huge amount of Bitcoin up around here in order to buy a house in Dubai, right? A huge house, which I'm very, very proud of, purely because, again, I mean, I just don't like being in agreement with everybody, and I feel like, at the moment, yes, I know a lot of people are quite bullish, but there's also that, kind of bearish sentiment starting to creep back in within, what is quite clearly a mid-term uptrend. It's just something that I think is worth paying attention to. Like I said, I'm not looking to massively position myself in this direction in particular. I still think it's a very, very real risk that we could end up dropping down. But, again, for me, the whole argument does rest on this inflation chart. The fact that we've never seen it, kind of drop down and then continue to rally up again, to me means that we're probably just going to drop down quite low. I know that it's a difficult conversation because they've even, like with many things lately, they've even changed the definition of how we measure hyperinflation rates, right? You know, and so there's, you know, you could even make an argument that this data isn't particularly accurate, you know, and I think that would be a fair argument as well. But bottom line, if we do start seeing a bit of a drop here, that could result in, you know, just a better, wider climate for speculation in these markets. And again, that's where things do definitely get quite exciting. So pretty deep one, you know, in my opinion. It's not something that I talk about particularly often. There's more that I can go into. Let me know if you want me to make a part 2 on this as well, and I will do that. Just drop it in the comment section down below. And guys, while you are down there, make sure you take advantage of this beautiful offer with OKX for up to $30,000 in rewards. Again, it's super easy to get it. Just register an account and you get up to 10k in a mystery box. Deposit $50, you get to you get up to 10k again, and then start trading. You can boost that up to 30k. Very cool offer there, guys. You want to stack that with Bybit and you get up to 60k, because Bybit with the rewards hub is going to be giving you up to 30k as well, just as a straight deposit bonus, meaning depending on what you deposit and trade with on Bybit, you get extra money back into your account which you can trade with. That is real money that you can trade with. Very cool offer indeed. Prime XBT, if you're trying to go crazy with it, you want to trade things like oil and the S&P 500 as well using a Bitcoin deposit, you can do that with Prime XBT with up to $7,000 in deposit bonuses as well. I mean, it's very straightforward with this. When you follow my link, look at the promo code down there. Literally anything you deposit, you're going to get 7% of that back, up to $7,000, which you can trade with. Super cool opportunity there. Make sure you follow these steps on screen if you want to jump inside of my 𝐴𝐵𝐹𝐿𝑦𝑠 VIP group as well. This is where I'm giving you all the information on every trade I'm making, all of my analysis and insights and so on, and you get free versions of that as well with just the 𝐴𝐵𝐹𝐿𝑦𝑠 gold link as well. This is, you know, posted to you in the Telegram channel around the clock for myself and my team, so well worth checking out. Really hope you've enjoyed this one. Big one from me. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you want part 2 as well, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.